Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Rhea. I am your host, and today I am joined by Martin Mainey from Luxury Hospitality Management. How are you, Martin?
I'm very well, thanks, Rhea. How are you?
Well, considering the climate around the world at the moment, not too bad, actually. We're all coming out of lockdown, and life is looking like it's going to get back to normal fairly shortly, and I think that's an exciting move.
Cool.
You are head of leadership and coaching at Luxury Hospitality Management. But before we get into what that is exactly, I want to find out a little bit more about you. So tell me, where are you from? And let's start there.
Okay, my family comes from Liverpool. The family originates from a little place called Litherland in North Liverpool. Most of my extended family still live there. However, my personal family, we moved away when I was 7 to a town called Preston, which is about 20 miles away from Liverpool. So I grew up around Preston. I went to high school in Preston. I went to college in Preston. And then from there, I went back to Liverpool to study my undergraduate degree in chemistry. So kind of northwest of England is where I call home.
Well, so what were yours? You said chemistry. So what were sort of your goals growing up? What did you want to become as you grew and became an adult?
I really struggled in terms of knowing, in terms of a career, what I wanted to do. But what I was very clear on was I wanted to travel. Right. So always itchy feet, wanting to get out there and explore. Even before I went to university, I took a year off and I went traveling. I was hitchhiking around Europe. Just loved that feeling of being completely alone and exploring new places. And I'm saying alone, you're never alone when you're alone, because you always then automatically have to start talking to people. But your agenda is your own. So I've always had a great buzz off that. And I've had 8 years traveling through my life since leaving home.
So you got into yachting at some stage. How did that come about?
My sister, Georgie, who you know, she hung out down the south of France and was engaged in this scene. And I was always intrigued by it. And in my mid-30s, I thought, I really want to have a look at this. So I arranged with my boss that I would get a year off, like a sabbatical year. And he promised to, hold my salary and my position. So I headed down to Antibes. And I did the day working scene, living at Amma's guest house or like crew house. It was like a tatty old crew house, not like the crew houses these days. And walked the quay in the morning, walked the quay in the evening, did the round of bars and just trying to, connect, network with crew. And day worked through the summer through. So I finished I was working as a further education lecturer, teaching sports science. I finished there in in July, and day worked through July, August, September, and then I managed to score like an extended period of day work on a yacht called Medusa over in Palma, where you are now. I loved it in Palma, had a great time there, and whilst I was there, I scored a permanent crew position on a yacht called Ultima 3 as a second steward. And then I spent, I lasted 3 years. I was only supposed to be out there for a year, but I was having so much of a good time. It was too good to give up.
So what made you decide to leave yachting then after 3 years, if you enjoyed it so much?
Relationships, I would say, would be the easiest answer to that. I met a girl who is now my wife. And that was the key driver for me to step out of the life of, great experiences, great travel experiences, hanging out on these amazing looking vessels in beautiful parts of the world. My drive or my draw was to be back here with Zoe. And we now have 2 children. We have Mia, who's 11, just turned 11, and Izzy, who's 8. and it was our 4th wedding anniversary last week.
Well, congratulations. Good for you. So once you got out of yachting, where did you head after that?
So I went straight back to the guy who was my boss, who gave me the year off. He phoned me like the following April saying, right, I'm just getting the timetable ready for September, Martin. He said, you know, and I said, I'm not coming back, Jeff. And he was, what? Anyway, I did eventually come back, and he did give me my job back. And I then worked in further education, and then my career progressed within leadership in further education. And I became a senior leader for, you know, a good 17 years in the FE sector, the further education sector. And I worked as a freelance consultant, supporting colleges across the country who were either struggling with their performance in terms of how successful the students were being, or really wanted to push from that being a good college to an outstanding college.
So what got you into luxury hospitality management then?
Well, strangely enough, Peter and I, our paths almost crossed in the year 2000. I left, or 2002-ish, I was hanging about with a yacht called Medusa that became a significant part of Peter's life, really, and the whole Paul Allen fleet and his extended accommodation became part of what Peter did for a significant part of his yachting career. But then his connection with my sister Georgie brought us together about 14-15 months ago. And that's when the synergy between what luxury hospitality were trying to do and further developing the leadership capacity that they already had within their offer.
So what is head of leadership and coaching?
Well, so I have my responsibilities are to, you know, define the training programs that we use and the style in which we deliver them, and the underpinning ethos and philosophy that we are trying to, you know, to share with whomever we engage with, whether it's super yachts or land-based organizations, to develop positive, healthy working cultures. So that's really what I see my role is. And we always support any training we do. We start off with insights, and we look at, you know, personality types of teams to give people an awareness of themselves. But as much as giving them an awareness of themselves, it's understanding difference in others. And then we follow up with both the skill-based technical training and then the leadership training, and then coaching is on offer for those in leadership with leadership responsibility to help them further develop their leadership capacity and leadership skill.
When we're talking about a yacht, what do you think is the one thing that the crew as a whole, as a team, are lacking the most straight across the board?
I fully appreciate that there are many fantastic captains out there, but predominantly, particularly when you look at the retention rates of crew, there is a significantly high level of churn on yachts, and I think captains have a key role in addressing that retention problem with the type of culture that they develop under their leadership. And that culture is a culture that has well-being at its core, the well-being of individuals at its core.
We had a discussion prior to this interview, and you had a statement that I found really interesting and really got to the core of the matter. What is true leadership?
Okay, true leadership is a very, very personal thing. So I can give you what I see is my personal opinion about what true leadership is. A true leader, you can lead however you choose to lead, and some people choose to lead in a style where, you know, they expect people to do things and they demand people to do things, And you know, they can buy their back and they can buy their hand, and people will show up at 8:30 and do a day's work, and they will finish at 5:30, and that's what they get. Great leaders for me are leaders who know how to win people's hearts and win people's minds. And when you win people's hearts and win people's minds, you change the I have to I want to. People come to work enthusiastic and eager to do a good job, particularly in the super yacht industry. When you're dealing with ultra high net worth individuals that need that ultra luxury experience, people need to be really happy in their work life, not just when the boss is on, but generally they feel happy that they feel part of a high performing, harmonious team where the relationships are good, where their goals are clear, where they feel well supported and well rewarded from their leaders. When they feel that, they can, from their whole heart and all their energy, can give full, meaningful, high luxury service.
So one thing I find really interesting is when people are looking for crew, there are a lot of things that boxes need to be checked, but that doesn't necessarily make a good crew, because you can have as many training, tickets, etc., but you might not be cohesive with the rest of the crew. So it is much more difficult to create a winning team that actually sticks together for long term, because we see that in yachting, you may see a 6-month turnover, a 3-month turnover. People are constantly coming in and out. Is that because they're not taking a look at the individuals as a person and seeing if they fit?
Well, what we encourage boats to do, skippers to do when they are recruiting, we use a tool called Talent Dynamics that gets into somebody's personality. It gives you all their energy. It gives you not the whole picture, but it helps create a more fuller picture of the type of person that you are bringing on board. For example, you know, if you're looking for a steward or a stewardess, you need somebody who's got energy with people. They feel energized when they're with people. And a talent dynamics test, you know, can tell you whether this person is going to fit that profile for you. And if they're not, then it gives you an insight as to whether they're going to be a right fit for your boat. Okay, so that's an example of one about how being careful in your selection is crucial. Having the right people on the boat is critical. You know, so selecting the right team is essential. Equally, having the wrong people that are on the boat, off the boat, is also critical, because that will also just lead to negative energy and destroy the personal relationships that exist there. And this talent dynamics tool is very, very helpful in doing that.
Sorry, even with the talent dynamics test, though, you can find the perfect person for that, but it carries on. They also have to be able to mesh well with the other crew. And if they don't have a good leader, even the person that ticks all the right boxes, they can not do their job in the way they should be doing their job as a result of from top down.
Absolutely. You know, what great leaders do, in my mind, is they get people. They can read, you know, they have high levels of emotion intelligence, and not only are they very self-aware of their own emotions and how to manage their emotions, they are also very aware of other people's emotions and how to manage other people's emotions. So great leaders will one, know how to make people feel safe and secure in their environment. So this is for an individual to feel happy before we get to individuals with others. Then they will make, you know, great leaders make it very, very clear their expectations. And it's absolutely fine to have high expectations. I would expect leaders to have high expectations. Okay. But if it's done in a supportive way, in a caring way, in a developmental way, people will come along the journey with you. If it's done in a dictatorial way, in a way where if you're not living up to those expectations, you start to feel fear and anxiety, then that has a detrimental effect on the individual's own personal safety and self-esteem and their status whilst on board, and that starts the process of the deterioration of their happiness and their desire to leave, or potentially even issues with other crew members. So once the individual is happy, what great leaders are also good at is developing a culture where difficult conversations are had and had well. So the small things, the little things, are dealt with and dealt with early, rather than allowing them to fester and fester and fester so that they grow so big that the monster eats the house.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, in one of the top 2 or 3 things that great leaders do is develop a culture where these difficult conversations are normal and people are encouraged to, okay, we need to go and have a conversation about this. We don't seem to be on the same page somehow. Let's work away. But it's done with a good heart, not with a finger pointing. And that's not just the captain to the senior team or the captain to the crew. It's the crew to crew as well. And also, you know, when 2 crew members are falling out, when there is tension, they will often go to their leaders and complain. So that, you know, the poor chief stewardess is sat there, and you know, Joanne comes to her and tells me that, you know, Fiona's this, and this, and then Fiona comes saying Joanne's this, and this, and the poor chief stewardess is stuck in the middle. Again, great leadership pushes the responsibility back to those 2 individual crew members. You're professional people. We can mediate, but you have to sort your problems. That's your responsibility, not my responsibility to fix it.
So in the end, realistically, you can have the perfect sort of machine, as it were. You could find, with the talent dynamics, you can find the people that tick all the right boxes. You can find a crew that is very cohesive. You can find a great leader. But it doesn't stop there. It's something that just carries on, because as human beings, nothing is ever perfect. And there is always the need to continue and to carry forward some extra learning. Is that something that you help people with?
Yeah, you know, you're exactly right there, Rhea. Sadly, you know, when you create high-performing teams, you create high-performing people. And high-performing people always need promotion and development. And they invariably, they will leave. You know, chief officers become skippers. You know, you are always going to have great people leaving, and that is a great reflection on, you know, on the captain's leadership. You know, you're developing great people. So training and development is an ongoing process, and you know, it's something that, you know, you have to accept as a leader, that you are going to, you know, you've just got everything just the way you want it. And then 1 or 2 key players move on, you know. And I'm not just talking about, you know, leaders. Everybody in this team is crucial, you know. So, you know, every 1 or 2 players moving on affects the team, and then you need to, you know, to support in getting new players back into the team, settling the team. The team will go through a process of forming, storming, norming, and then performing again. And experienced leaders know this. They're used to the fact that I've just got it great, and here we go again.
So is that something in your role that you do when you are sort of contracted, whether it be by a management team, whether it be by a captain, whether it be by an owner? Do you go in on a long-term plan, or is it generally just a one-off, or do they see the need to continue to have you 12 months out of the year consistently coming back to upgrade, to train, to rehire, that sort of thing?
Typically, we are on a long-term plan with most organisations. You know, even if the initial engagement might be deemed to be a one-off. Typically, we are you know, we look at a long-term, even 3-year cycles of supporting and developing. So yeah, it's a long-term rather than, you know, a one-hit in and out and gone.
And what does that consist of? Is that like a constant, you know, maybe once a month or once every couple of months you go in and do some more training, or do you come in when there's a phone call and you're needed, or how does that work?
It's kind of a mixture of all of those things. Sometimes we're being reactive, and there are specific issues that we are asked to come in and help with. If there is, you know, if there's some dysfunction or disharmony somewhere, or if there's a new project that needs a greater number of people bringing in, and, you know, we need to support with a selection process and onboarding. But typically there will be with training. What I try to encourage all organisations to do it's training is not just for the leaders. It's for everybody. We're all leaders, and the ethos around leadership that I try to encourage is that we develop self-leading individuals, people that don't need or want to be managed, but are very, very clear on their goals, that they agree with their line managers, and then they manage themselves against pre-agreed criteria. So rather than the leadership team going away, having a couple of days on a course, coming back with all kinds of new ideas, we start with everybody. And we develop personal leadership skills and a personal leadership culture within everybody, and then support the senior leaders in how to perpetuate this self-managing leadership. You know, the two classic mistakes that leaders and managers make is, first of all, trying to lead others before they lead themselves, and then secondly, trying to manage others as opposed to leading others to manage themselves through pre-agreed criteria. So it's a whole boat approach, and you know, start with everybody on personal leadership, then the leadership team with developing this leadership style, this culture of self-leadership that I've tried to describe there. And then we have a range of programs, you know, depending, you know, sometimes, you know, we've got programs to support emerging leaders, so people who aren't quite leaders yet, and look at how to develop their productivity. So first line leaders, their first role as a chief steward or as a head of housekeeping, where they're managing small teams, and we can teach them, you know, the 6 critical practices of leadership. And then we have more senior captain level, and even, you know, Commodore level, where, you know, you're working with somebody who's got the, you know, the responsibility of managing a fleet.
So let me ask you, this talent dynamic, for example, I would imagine on a charter boat, because, you know, you always have different guests, you can't actually, you know how the team will work with those people coming on board, because it's constantly changing. But if it is an owner boat and it is the owner and their friends and family that utilize that boat, do you ever find yourself in a position where you do the talent dynamic test on the owners in order to make sure that the crew are cohesive with the owners?
Sure. You know, being able to read your customer. You know, once people start to get a basic understanding of talent dynamics, they will, you know, very, very quickly meet somebody and know what their core energy is like, and therefore how best to interact with them and communicate with them. You know, somebody who has very, very blaze energy, they want you to spend time with them talking. You know, they want you to engage with them in dialogue and communication. Whereas somebody with steel energy, as an owner or, you know, as a significant guest on they want the key information. They don't want the chat. So, you know, you can very, very quickly pick up on what their energy is. You know, part of talent dynamics is one, recognizing where your natural energy and what your strengths and challenges are, but also recognizing it in others. And so, you know, when we're training this, we always work with teams so that they start to recognize the energy in others. So it's not just those of their team members, and they can start then to read it in everybody. Not just you then start doing it when you're out in the shops, when you're in a bar, you know, when you're having a coffee with people. You know, you start, are these a tempo, or, you know, and it really does help in rapport.
I can imagine, because if you have a feel for your customer, whether it be the charter guest or the owner, you are better able to serve them, and you're better able to understand what their wants and needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. So talent dynamics is helpful in many ways. It's helpful in a selection process, in the recruitment. It's helpful in allowing teams to understand each other better, which, when you are living 24/7 on a yacht with people, and if you want that crew harmony, which is critical to it's not like they can go home and, you know, rant and rave to their partner about who did what at work today, and then sit and switch the telly on in their own living room, then go to bed in their own bedroom. They've got the crew mess and they've got their cabin. So yeah. Having this awareness of we're not all the same. we respond to the same stimulus in very, very different ways. And it just takes that little edge off, that little pressure off, that if people understand each other a little bit more, it does, which I think is very, very important in living on board a CPO.
Well, you know what? I would highly advise anybody that is in the process of putting together a crew or adding to their crew to get a hold of you or any of the luxury hospitality management team, because frankly, you are great at what you guys do. You are able to read a room the minute you walk in. And it's interesting because even looking at your team as a whole and having conversations with most of your team, you have created exactly what you want to create with others. You have managed to create a team that interacts really well with one another based on this talent dynamic. So you're not just selling this product to other people, you're utilizing that product and making it work for you as well.
And I've really got to take my hat off to Peter Vogel for that. Peter, I highly respect him as our leader. I think he is a great leader, and he models all the principles and the insights that we try to develop within organizations themselves. He's a big fan. He brought talent dynamics to the party for luxury hospitality. So it's his influence and his drive that is what you see within our team.
Well, I have had the pleasure of speaking to one-on-one with a few of you already, and I will continue so over the next year or so. And it is every single time an absolute pleasure to speak with one of the team, because you all come from the right place and you all have the same drive and determination, no matter where you sit on the talent dynamic scale.
Well, listen, lovely to spend some time with you this morning, Rhea, and I hope some of the messages ring true for some people who are listening.
I'm sure they will. And you know what? We're going to provide all the information needed if somebody is interested in contracting the services for luxury hospitality management. I would highly recommend that people do that. Martin, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, Rhea. Nice to see you.
Once again, this has been Martin Mainey, Head of Leadership and Coaching at Luxury Hospitality Management. My name is Rhea. I have been your host. You've been watching another edition of Coffee and Conversation right here on Yachting International Radio. Stay tuned for another episode.